Meeting to order. I'm going to lead an invocation, and after which we'll stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Let us pray. Our loving and wonderful God, as we come into this place this evening, as this board conducts the business of this county, we pray that you'll bless us. We pray that you'll bless and guide and direct each of us as in the decision-making process. We pray that we'll only make the decisions which is going to benefit this county and which is in keeping with your will. We thank you for your love and your mercies, and we thank you for blessing us and watching over each of us. We pray that you'll continue to do so. For it is in your wonderful name we pray. Amen. Amen. Let us stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First item on the agenda is amendments to the agenda. Mr. Ashcraft.
Well, you just put these up here on my desk.
Mr. Chairman, there are no amendments, and there was actually, I believe, some closed session items that one of them will not be taken up this evening. So we'll clarify that when we do the motion for closed session. All right. Opening board comments. Mr. Popowitz.
I have none, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Thomas.
One is that I'd asked at the last meeting, John here? Mr. Borshak? The museum subcommittee for the building is going to meet tomorrow at 7 o'clock, and I'll forward you the details. I just want to make sure you were aware of it. If you could attend for me, I'd appreciate that. Okay, thank you. That was it.
Mr. Seeley?
No, sir.
Mr. Roselle?
None, Mr. Chairman.
And I have no opening comments either. Mr. Stunkel, I believe you're the first presentation on the agenda this evening. It's good to see you. Good to have you with us.
Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening.
A couple of traffic engineering items that were carried over from last meeting. One was the speed limit on Burris Lane. Of course, that road was posted at 40 miles an hour, and they did another speed study. Measured the operating speed of the vehicles at two locations, and one of the locations on the east end, the speed 85th percentile was about 44.8 miles an hour, and on the west end it was 48.61. Accident history, there's only been one accident in a 3-year period, and that was a car struck a deer. Based on those statistics, they did not recommend any further reduction of the 40-mile-per-hour speed limit. Now keep in mind that there's numerous curves on that road that are posted for maximum safe speed lower than 40 miles an hour because the alignment is not that great. They did see some chevrons that were in there that were not optimally placed, and we have since adjusted those. But bottom line is we did not recommend any further reduction to the 40-mile-an-hour speed limit. The other traffic study that's ongoing is the intersection of Route 207 and 639. They have gone in, they've done a signal study for the location, met none of the warrants as far as placement of a traffic signal there. So now they're looking at additional items that they think that might be able to help the situation. They're supposed to be setting up a meeting next week with a couple of traffic engineers to meet out there and take a look at it, and I'll report back on what their recommendations are. Mowing is on the primary system. Our second round of mowing is ongoing as soon as the weather starts cooperating with us again. That's really all that I have tonight.
Thank you. Mr. Popowitz, you have any comments?
I have nothing, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Thomas?
Mr. Stunkel, thank you for the results of the speed study, and I do appreciate that. I may have another one. I got a request from another resident in that area, so I'll just make sure you get the information later.
Okay.
Thank you. That was it.
Mr. Seeley?
I guess I'll just wait I know that 207 and 639 has been sort of an issue for folks in the Bowling Green district since a couple of the accidents have been with them. So I'll just wait and see what you all come up with at the next meeting. But thank you for taking a look at that.
Mr. Rozelle?
The only thing I have, thank you, Mr. Chairman, Charlie, good evening. The, on Mount Gideon Road, as soon as you go past Mount Gideon and it's probably about a half mile down, there's a sharp curve that goes to the right. I did have a constituent that was concerned about that curve and with the more traffic because of the subdivision there, that the curve probably could use some warnings. You could have somebody look at that, I'd appreciate it.
Okay.
That's all, Mr. Chairman.
John, I'm not sure the staff has talked to you. Maybe they have. But we had attempted to have placed on the signs as you enter the county, especially on 95 and some other places entering Caroline County, the emblem or the symbol of the All-American cities that we have the designation for. And it's my understanding that the Highway Department, or it may not be the Highway Department, it may be some other group that will not allow those type of emblems to be put on. Do you know anything about that?
Well, no, that request had not come through my office.
It did not.
We had looked at the technology zone sign.
Okay.
But not the...
Okay. Mr. Ashcraft, would you send something through Mr. Stunkel's office? Because I think it's important that we utilize that designation as much as we can and wherever we can.
Would this be something that you wanted to add to your existing welcome signs?
Well, yes, that is something we'd want to add to the welcoming signs. However, on 95, as you cross North Atlanta River coming from Hanover into Caroline, there's a sign that says entering Caroline County and leaving Hanover County. If that sign will not work, could we put it on the sign that we have on 95 that talks in terms of the Tourism Information Center?
Yeah, the only thing I can really say is please send me the request and I will forward it through channels.
Okay. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, our follow-up committee meets again tomorrow.
Right.
And we're pretty close to getting a whole sign development to be recommended. And it includes not only the welcome signs that you refer to, but a separate independent, for the lack of a term, George, stick sign, I guess is a pole sign that we would place all over the county, and about 50 of those.
On 95?
Well, I don't believe 95 has been researched, is that correct?
This is at normal entrances and exits out of the county. It's just a road.
That's what I know. I saw that
Yeah.
over the weekend.
The 95 designation, we need to follow up. Did you say follow up with you, Charlie? Is that correct?
Yeah, well, basically, all of that sign placement, it would
Okay.
probably be well if you could bundle it all together
Okay.
and send it
Okay.
to me.
Yeah, matter of fact, the meeting tomorrow should finalize that request.
Thank you, Mr. Stunkel. We'll do that.
All right, thank you all.
Appreciate you being here. Mr. Roberts, I believe you're next on the agenda for update on the State Fair.
Reminded me to talk to Charlie about our signs on the interstate as well, so I was making a note. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Good to see you.
Mr. Chairman and members of the board, what I was going to update you on tonight has to do with our promotion of our location being in Caroline County. But before I get to that, we are just barely over 2 weeks away from opening the State Fair of Virginia at the Meadow. I want to commend Caroline County local government at virtually every level and everyone we've worked with throughout the construction process in the county for having been helpful and cooperative. I can't say that I've always liked what they told me. It's kind of like dealing with you gentlemen, but I want to commend them for being responsive and being helpful, and I don't think we could have gotten this far, or would we be ready on the 24th without their assistance, and I do want to thank them for that.
Thank you.
One of our proffers dealt with working with Gary Wilson and his department on promoting the fact that we are located in Caroline County, and I wanted to give you an update on that first. On almost all of our written material, for instance, the brochure that we have for this year's fair, it clearly points out that we're located in Doswell, Virginia, in Caroline County on the cover. 350,000 of these have been distributed throughout Virginia, denoting the location. In our media guide, this went out to 500 plus media outlets, and it clearly denotes where we are located and that it is in Caroline County. And I'm going to leave these with Percy so he could pass them around if you guys want to look at them a little more closely. Our Ed Expo guide also points out that on the cover that we're located in Caroline County. This goes out to 350 plus school teachers to organize their visits to the fair that will represent about 15,000 school children who will visit during the fair. And this probably goes to 40 plus school systems throughout Central Virginia, primarily west of the Blue Ridge Mountains, but throughout Central Virginia. We also are doing in Fredericksburg, the first time we've done this in a number of years, we're using direct mail to promote our location. Since Fredericksburg is a new primary market for us, we're doing 2 direct mail pieces to 35,000 households in the Fredericksburg media market, which is basically Fredericksburg, Stafford, Spotsylvania, and Prince William. And the cover of that direct mail piece, which will be a postcard again, will point out that we are located and shows that we're located in Caroline County. Our print ads, which are beginning to appear in newspapers from Tidewater to Charlottesville to Fredericksburg to Richmond, also point that out. Our daily guide, which we print over 100,000 of these. This is something, and it brought to mind your question about the All-America County designation. In our daily guide, we use the All-America County logo. That is also, by the way, on the State Fair of Virginia event website. We brought that up on the website as well. So if you go to the State Fair of Virginia event site, it has down in the corner the All-America County designation. We receive about 500,000 hits per year to that website in a typical cycle. So anyway, I wanted to give you that update. I also brought along a feature in Style magazine from the Richmond, that went into the Richmond market. If you have not seen it, we were the cover on Style. This is distributed free in Richmond. It is very widely read. And if you would look on the front page story here, the 3rd paragraph points out that it is in Caroline County. So I'll also leave that with you as well. The final piece, and this was one, we've got several others, but I just wanted to simply give you a flavor. Gary has been involved with our planning on doing this, has looked at how we are using your name and applying it in our media, and he's been quite helpful. On the VRA from Fredericksburg to DC, we have bought storyboards on those trains this year. And again, I'll leave this here. But this is what the storyboards will be, and if you look down in the corner, clearly denotes Caroline County. So again, I'll leave this. You guys can pass it around. And I'd be happy to answer any questions on the promotion front before I go to my next item, Mr. Chairman, or do you want me to complete?
What have any questions about promotional items that Mr. Roberts has? Go ahead.
One thing I'd like to leave you with, or more importantly, leave your county administrator, we are providing the county 1,000 weekday walk-around tickets to distribute to nonprofits or the school systems, however you choose to do it. And we will be referring people to the county number, but we thought this was the best way to distribute it. You're more familiar in this county of what organizations may be of need for these tickets. We've never done anything like this before. This is the largest size that we've ever offered anyone. But we, again, want to be a contributing part of the community, and we felt this was one way to do it. And I did discuss this with Percy last week. That concludes my remarks.
Mr. Roberts, we appreciate everything that you've done. You've certainly been a good partner with Caroline County, and you've certainly lived up to everything that you said you were going to do in the rezoning process. I'm very appreciative of that, as well as I know this board is. We appreciate and trust the weather's going to be good for you to have a dry fair. Of course, we probably need some rain in Caroline County, so it may be good that fair's coming pretty soon. But again, we wish you the very best. And other board members have comments or questions?
No, other than Curry, thank you very much for meeting with me and Eric and Greg the other day.
Oh, you're very welcome.
And certainly, hopefully, that program's off the ground. Is that right?
Well, we look forward to following up on that, and especially on the food service front.
Okay.
We do have a need there, so we would like to proceed with that as soon as we possibly could.
All right. Thank you very much. Appreciate
You're very welcome.
Other comments, Mr. Thomas?
Thank you, Mr. Curry, and look forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks.
Thank you.
Mr. Stidham?
Thanks for all the ad dollars.
No, you're very welcome.
I mean, rarely do we get that many places email or mailed, sent, and pushing Caroline County, and I think that can do nothing but help us out. So thanks for the proffer, and thanks for following through.
Thank you.
Mr. Rozelle?
Well, no, I certainly appreciate all the extra attention you and your staff have given us in trying to make the planning and the process of making this thing smooth, and the monthly, weekly meetings that you all attended. We appreciate all that. And one thing I still would like the board to keep fresh in your memory is the boat landing for canoeing and those sorts of things for recreation. I did talk to a gentleman at the statewide from recreation that there may be some funds out there possibly that are used annually for these types of things. So might be an opportunity there. So we'll follow up on that.
Sounds great. Thanks for coming. Thanks
Chairman.
for the...
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Chairman, may I add something?
Sure, please go ahead.
I guess it's in the form of an apology. Tonight, we had intended to present Mr. Roberts with a county flag that will hang high and proud over the fairgrounds, and it's an abnormally sized flag because of the abnormal size of the fairgrounds, and it took a little more to get it put together and ordered and so forth that we had anticipated. So we do not have it, but according to Mr. Wilson, we will have it in advance of September 24th when you open your fair.
Well, I'd hate for Mr. Akers to not see it when he comes down to the ribbon cutting.
I
don't want him to think I wouldn't fly it or anything like that.
So it will be delivered, and we apologize for not having it here this evening.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Chairman.
you.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to the next agenda item, and that would be the annual report from Metacorp. And gentlemen, good to see you here tonight.
Well, we appreciate your time, giving us in front of you. And first, let me say, we're all looking forward to the State Fair coming to Caroline. I know I'll be down there myself. And so will a lot of our folks at Metacorp. Xavier Richardson has joined me. He's our Executive Vice President of Community Affairs. He's passing out some more detailed information related to presentation. I have a shortened version of that, so I'm not going to take up a lot of your time, but you can take a look and read it at your pleasure. We would like to take this opportunity to give you your annual report, community benefit report, and we'll start out by giving a general overview of where Mary Washington Hospital is. As you may, or I'm sure you know, at this point, Mary Washington Hospital is the region's tertiary care center at this point. It is the largest hospital, has the greatest scope of service of any hospital between Medical College of Virginia and Fairfax Hospital. It's 437 beds. It has a number of centers of excellence you can see on the screen there. And we're 1 year into our Level 2 trauma program. Our Level 2 trauma will serve approximately 400 patients its first year of operations. And we have most recently received the Primary Stroke Center certification from the Joint Commission, which is our accrediting body at Mary Washington Hospital. So scope of services at Mary Washington have expanded quite substantially. The opening at Stafford Hospital Center took place in February of this year, and because of that, we were permitted to expand the services at Mary Washington, free up some space at Mary Washington to do so. We believe that has permitted us to advance the services there now, and there's not many things that one would need that you cannot currently get at Mary Washington Hospital. Stafford opened in February with 100 inpatient private rooms, a full-service emergency department, and between the two emergency departments at Mary Washington Hospital and Stafford Hospital Center, we will see 125,000 patients in the first 12 months of operations for those two ERs combined. We also, in the Metaplex at Lee's Hill, we have medical imaging at Lee's Hill, which is just north of the county line here, where it's one of the few open MRIs outside of the cosmopolitan areas that patients could be treated on. We have multi-slice CT scanners, the state-of-the-art equipment there. We also have a wound care healing center there, a rehab center there, and an outreach center in Massaponax as well. We have home health and hospice that are based there, although the home health hospice nurses obviously go to homes. They go to a number of homes in Caroline County. We have a diabetes management program there. We also adopted and instituted a patient navigator program that I'm sure nearly all of us have had family and friends who've had the unfortunate diagnosis of having cancer and the complicated process related to the general treatment of cancer. And the fact that we now have patient navigators to help people through that. We have a Lady Smith Medical Center we've had in place for some time. We now have 2 physicians, 1 nurse practitioner there, seeing patients. Of course, the greatest need in most communities is primary care. So we look to have continue our operations at Lady Smith. Some of the newer developments, we've most recently opened some Next Care urgent care centers. It's we have a partnership with a national company. It's the most high advanced, comprehensive urgent care centers are available in this country today. We opened our first one out at Route 3 in Spotsylvania County. We've got 2 more open in Stafford. We've got another 3 on a docket to get open, and we're looking at sites throughout the region where we can put our Next Care centers. They're open 365 days a year to treat patients. I already mentioned our level 2 trauma. What's the difference between level 1 and level 2 is level 1 is usually the academic medical centers, and they typically include burns and transplants. And since there are very, very few needs for burns and transplants, it's better that those be centralized in just a few facilities in the state so that the people can keep the skill sets necessary to ensure those patients can be treated. Short of that, there's not much that our trauma service couldn't take care of at Mary Washington, and they do so today. Our Human Motion Institute, you can see a lot of the orthopedic and musculoskeletal services related there. Each and every one of those services, we have subspecialty orthopedic surgeons available to care for them. We have surgeons that specialize in each one of the various orthopedic areas. They're currently on staff at Mary Washington Hospital. Our Virginia Heart and Vascular Institute has now become a center of excellence, and most recently we had another surgeon join Dr. John Armitage in our open heart program at the Virginia Heart and Vascular Institute. During this past year, we've added physicians in general surgery, specializing in breast disease and surgery. Of course, we now have the 6th trauma surgeon that's scheduled to start very soon. We have 5 very active trauma surgeons. We have perinatology. Obviously, we've had cardiac surgery. We've added rheumatology, and we've added plastic surgery so that there will be access for patients who need reconstructive services, not just retail plastic surgery. We're building our Women's Center of Excellence on the main campus. We're developing our Oncology Center of Excellence with our physicians in many of the specialties that touch cancer. We talked about our navigator, and we've recently instituted a heart failure clinic in order to help manage the chronic conditions of heart failure, congestive heart failure in patients so that they can manage it effectively in their households without needing to be admitted to the hospital all the time. We also instituted and put in place one called Transfer Center. Since Mary Washington is now a regional tertiary care center, it will be receiving patients from other hospitals. Currently receiving patients from Stafford Hospital. Will also be have the ability to receive patients from Spotsylvania Regional Medical Center when it gets open for advanced care that are provided currently at the tertiary center at Mary Washington. Some of our community benefit to Caroline County. We have provided $37.4 million of charity care and uncompensated Medicaid care to citizens of Caroline County, and that amount is actual cost, that's not charges. Same is true, we've also given $2.17 million of donations to the community through both our hospital foundations at Stafford and at Mary Washington, at $15.2 million of health education programs and services that we have provided in the region. In total, Medicorp's provided $44.6 million worth of uncompensated care just for Medicare patients alone. For Caroline County, we've provided $2.8 million of charity care, $1.7 million directly for charity care, those people who do not have the ability to pay, and uncompensated care for the Medicaid patients that come to the system. So just over $2.8 million of uncompensated care provided to Caroline County residents by the Medicorp Health System. In addition, we provided $2.9 million of uncompensated care for Medicare patients residing in Caroline County. Caroline County residents have received almost $700,000 in Medicorp health education and services in 2008. Those include our senior care clinic, our diabetes management program, our Coumadin or anticoagulation clinic, and our mobile mammography program. 2008, we provided almost $6.5 million of community benefit to the citizens of Caroline County, and we look to continue to do that. Since 1997, our Community Services Fund have given grants to organizations in Caroline County in excess of $1 million. In addition, Caroline County residents benefit directly from the regional organizations that are funded by the Mary Washington Hospital Community Services Fund that reach out regardless of where their offices are located. We're also the driving force about the establishment of the Moss-Free Clinic and our partners, and we have provided over $5.1 million of support to the clinic. We have our foundation led by Xavier Richardson, who accompanied today, did a campaign that raised $7.7 million to build a new facility and to establish a perpetual operating fund. And Medicorp Properties owns the building and the land the building sits on, and we provide it to the Moss-Free Clinic for a cost of $1 per year. We have been given grants of $880,000 to the clinic, and we provide the financial support for 60% of its operating budget. In 2008, 8.8% of Moss-Free Clinic patients' residents were from Caroline County. Medicorp is the largest employer in the region. We're almost close to 5,000 now since this slide was put together. 4.4% of those, or 212 employees, live in Caroline County, and the average wage of those employees that reside in Caroline County is almost $22 an hour. Future things, we're going to get the freestanding emergency department in the Lees Hill, Massaponack region up and running probably the end of October, beginning of November. We're going to continue to recruit specialty physicians. Our service line development facilities at Mary Washington is going to continue so we can elevate the care given there, so the access is greater for all the patients in the region. We hope to achieve magnet designation from the American Nurses Credentialing Center. We should know that within the next 30 days. We had a review by them. Only 5% of the hospitals in the country receive that designation. The magnet designation is one in which you have an employment situation so attractive that the American Nurses Association designates you as a magnet hospital for nurses. We're going to continue to develop the Stafford Hospital Center and also continue to develop the medical pavilions in southern Spotsylvania County, as we explained a little earlier. So we look to continue to look for and explore ways to help the citizens of Caroline County for their health care needs of the future. There's more extensive in the report that we passed out to individual members, and you can read it at your leisure. We'll gladly answer any questions you may have.
Thank you so much for coming in this evening and sharing with the board this information. It's pleasing that Caroline County is being supported, and certainly appreciate what Mary Washington Hospital and all of its groups do for the people of the region and the people of Caroline County. Mr. Richardson, it's good to see you this evening. We appreciate you coming out as well. Does the board have any questions or comments? No. Okay. Thanks so much for the information, and thank you for coming. Appreciate it tremendously.
We have the facsimile of the check of the care provided to the Caroline County residents would like to leave with you.
Okay, absolutely. That'd be great. We appreciate that. That is super. Do you know how many patients that the Ladysmith Clinic sees on a yearly basis?
The Moss Street Clinic?
No, the Ladysmith.
Ladysmith Clinic.
Yeah, medical clinic. It's rather busy, I know.
Well, it has been, you know, we've got 3 providers there now.
Yeah,
there was a time we had 1.
Right.
So it's actually very busy. It's doing quite well overall, but I don't have the exact number of patients with me right now.
Good. Okay. Hopefully one day we can see an emergency care facility
Down this way.
in Caroline at some point.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate you coming out.
Bye-bye.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is the update on repairs to Frog Level Volunteer Rescue Squad. Chief Lehman?
Good evening.
Good evening. Good to see you.
Mr. Chairman, board members, you should have several documents in your package this evening relating to the situation that's occurred at Frog Level Rescue Squad. The first document will be a situation report that I sent to Mr. Ashcraft, kind of a brief outline of the events that took place over a period of several days. Bottom line is an issue was brought to my attention by Mr. Sprouse with Frog Level Rescue Squad regarding the quality of water down there. After looking into it a little bit further, some other issues cropped up. Nothing immediate at that particular time. I talked to Mr. Ashcraft. We got Mr. Whiteman with the building official's office involved. But again, it was nothing that needed immediate attention until the following weekend when we had torrential rain. At that particular point in time, the building flooded through the rear of the structure. The carpet got wet, presented some serious health issues, mold, etc., with the carpet. And we felt that it was in the best interest to vacate the building. Our career staff was moved to Frog Level Fire Department. They have been more than gracious during this event to relocate our folks in a medic unit at their facility. And we did further investigation, again, working in a collaborative effort with the staff of Frog Level Rescue Squad. You'll also find in your package a report from Mr. Whiteman regarding his findings. I also had a water analysis conducted, which came back unsuitable or non-potable. And then at that particular point in time, we got together with county administration again, looked at all the issues, got public utilities involved, and they did an assessment of the recommendations of Mr. Whiteman and what the county could do to assist, as well as what issues needed to be contracted out to get the building back into a habitable state. That would be the other document that you have in your package, the memorandum from Public Works, outlining their recommendations for repair of the structure. John, do you want to expand on that?
Just a few notes on the estimate that was done in looking at the structure. We approached it kind of from, first of all, what were the requests that were made, and secondly, did it appear to be anything that we could do in lieu of some of those that would make the structure habitable and yet a little less costly, not quite filling the request that was in. Most of that had to do with the areas of how the kitchen would be redone. So you'll see the difference in the two cost estimates. The majority of that has to do with whether the kitchen remains out in the open bay, in which case it basically would require being totally enclosed, new wall constructed, number of other things, or if it were to go back into an area that wouldn't have to do that in the remainder of the building. So that is the majority of the difference in the two cost estimates that you see before you. Also, we looked at where you see figures where it says staff and a number next to it. The number next to it is essentially cost of materials, whereas the others, the contractor is materials plus the contractor's costs.
The volunteer leadership at Frog Level has taken a proactive approach as well, and they have spent a lot of time and effort over the last several weeks trying to mitigate as much as they could in-house. But that's basically where we are right now. Everything that could be done has been done from their standpoint, and we're seeking assistance to help them make these repairs. And it also needs to be noted that we're somewhat under the time crunch as well. The medic unit right now that's being housed at Frog Level Fire Department is being kept outside, and with the winter months approaching, elements and so forth, we need to move on that from the standpoint of getting that back inside in a climate-controlled environment.
I believe Mr. Ashcraft's recommendation is that the board approve up to $25,000 for these repairs.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Board members have questions, comments? Mr. Popowitz?
No, sir.
Mr. Thomas?
No, just doing the quick math, it's $9,500 for a well.
Yes, sir.
So you're basically saying $16,000 to do all of the other repairs, and that's going to be enough because we're going to use our own public works department for some of it. You think that's enough?
I'm going on the recommendations that we've got back from Public Utilities. With the volunteer staff, the career staff, doing items such as painting and doing what they can do, we'll make it work.
How long would it take to complete the project?
John, do you have an estimate from your side of the house?
The contractor portion can be done relatively quickly because most of them are really, looking and ready to go. The in-house portion is really going to be dependent upon scheduling and anything else that comes up, but this will certainly be one of the priorities that we're going to have for our forces. Fortunately, most of the things with the building rehabs and the moves and everything are over now, kind of getting to the end of the grass cutting season, so we should have adequate staff to get on this right away.
Okay, so if we approve this today, when would they be able to move back in?
We are probably looking somewhere between 30 and 90 days.
It's kind of a big spread. Okay, so it's a big time spread, but I understand what you're saying without saying it. Thank you.
Mr. Seeley?
I guess my first concern centers around where we're going to find the dollars to do this. I'm not saying we don't need to do it, but I'm saying that we've spent a good bit of money. We're not even through the first quarter yet, and we've spent somewhere in the neighborhood of $80,000, some on repairs, some on some other positions, but I know that we've got to find out where we're going to pay for this from. And I guess following up on Mr. Thomas's question on how long this is going to take, is there any way we can move the ambulance inside at the fire station while this whole process takes place?
Right now, we do not have accommodations for that. Not to say that we can't work something else out, but at the present time, we do not.
So there's nothing that we can move in there to bring this ambulance inside?
Not without working it out with the leadership of Frog Level Fire Department. At the present time, the unit's housed outside. We've got electricity, shore power to it, etc. But no, sir, there's no indoor accommodations.
Is that not something we have the ability to negotiate?
We could look into it.
I guess I'm a little frustrated. We have, a $200,000 or $300,000 apparatus that's sitting outside.
And if we moved that inside, one of their pieces at Frog Level Fire Department would sit outside.
Okay, for example,
One of their support units, Suburban, et cetera, would sit outside.
would a Suburban fare better outside than an ambulance?
Probably.
I mean, I'm looking at, we're looking at 90 days from now. This is the middle of September, or beginning of September. So you're looking at November. I'm just saying, what do we as a board need to do to get that vehicle inside? Is there anything we can do to facilitate that?
I think we can enter into discussions with Chief Mitchell again and see if it's anything we can do to facilitate that, or possibly moving one of their units up to the Frog Level Rescue Station. We can look into that, get back with you.
I mean, the county's looking to spend $23,000 on a facility. And I understand that the fire and the rescue are two different groups. I'm not mistaken that. But in all this, we're supposed to be one team, and I, for one, hate to see an ambulance sitting outside as the weather continues to get colder. And I think that's something that we need to facilitate. If you need help facilitating that, we need to know.
Okay, let me talk to Chief Mitchell again and see where we go.
Because, again, I'm concerned we're going to spend another $23,000 that we don't have. I mean, literally, I'm looking at the board chair, and we've had this discussion about how we're going to pay for stuff, and as my understanding, we have yet another fire truck that's going to come in and need another probably $8,000 or $10,000 worth of repair work. I know we've got to do it, but I know that there's got to be a team that stands behind all this as we're doing what we can to facilitate that. And I drove by and saw the ambulance sitting outside. I couldn't believe it. Yeah, it's nice now. It probably doesn't matter, but that's not going to last long. So if we need to get involved, we need to know.
Thank you, Mr. Seaton. Mr. Roselle?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Of course, you brought the idea to light. Why couldn't we get the Bay Area completed earlier? And if the guys have to be housed at the firehouse, why can't we put the ambulance inside at Frog Level Rescue? To make sure we have the batteries and shore lines up, but for our staff to be in the environment. I mean, when I respond to a call in the middle of the night, I get up, go 3 miles down the road and hop in a fire truck. So these guys have to hop in the car and go down to the rescue squad for half a mile. That's not so bad. So I think those accommodations can be made if we need to do it before the bad weather gets there. I don't think that's going to be all that hard to accommodate. So I think we can work through all that. And, you know, sometimes, you know, I've only been on the board for about 10 years, but sometimes things come up and we do the best we can with what we have. And, you know, the ladder truck recently broke down. We had to fix it. We're county government, that's what we do. And, you know, we try to hold back when we don't have to, but sometimes we just have to do it. And this is one of those times that, you know, I think we have to do it. And, you know, Mr. Chairman, I don't know if you have any other questions, but if motion's in order, I would like to.
Go ahead. I have no comments and questions at this point. I just think that John, you and David need to work together to make sure that this thing is moved along as well as with the volunteers. I see John Collison out there and some of the others. Make sure this process runs as quickly as we can, as smooth as we can, to make sure that we can get the ambulance back into the Frog Level Rescue Squad, the first thing, and then let's work on the other things.
Mr. Chairman, I would just like to thank Kevin Whiteman for, I think he has definitely gone above and beyond, working hard to try to make sure we get, you know, this stuff is serious. And he takes his job serious, and he's got in there and found out what we need to do to get it done. And just personally would like to thank him for all his efforts, and of course with John and his staff as well. So
before you make that motion, let me say, to address one of the concerns that Mr. Seeley has, and that's the funding of this work. We have this Friday, I believe it is, we have a finance group meeting, and what I'd like to see from that is you working with Beth to look at what we've estimated receiving on a monthly basis for the last couple of months versus what our actual receipts have been for the last couple of months, to see how far we're off. Expenditures is not a hard thing to come by. We can look at that based on the numbers that you would have to see where we're at. Again, we're in the early part of the budget year, and maybe we have to make some adjustments down the road. But I think these type of improvements and these type of issues have to be addressed, and we move forward with that. Mr. Roselle.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we authorize the expenditure up to $25,000 to complete the repairs to Frog Level Volunteer Rescue Squad.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made Mr. Roselle, seconded by Mr. Popowitz, that we approve up to $25,000 to be used to repair, to make the necessary repairs to the Frog Level Volunteer Rescue Squad, and the funding will come from the unencumbered balance. Is that correct, Mr. Roselle?
Yes, sir.
All right. Discussion on the motion.
Mr. Chairman, I just have one comment that I'd like to make.
Please go ahead.
I would hate to see us house the ambulance in a separate building from the staff. I think for 3 months, if we have to house something, we ought to move a piece from the Frog Level Fire Department over and house it in the Volunteer Rescue Squad for that temporary time, so that we're putting the right people in the right vehicle as fast as we can. One of the complaints that we get the most is how slow we are to respond with the rescue personnel. And I don't want to hinder them at all by putting them someplace else and the vehicle in another place. I think we have career staff down there, and they need that opportunity, need that ability and that availability of that vehicle when they get rolling. And I don't understand why we can't facilitate that.
May I make a comment? I don't think there's a question of whether we're facilitating that or not. I think tonight we have an emergency situation on a building, and we need to get it done and get it done with fast. I think all the other discussion is probably secondary to that.
We're doing our part as fast as we can. We have already put a vehicle outside that doesn't belong outside.
And I understand that, but Mr. Chile, I think our new fire chief has said he will go back and talk to these folks. I'm sure that they'll try to make as many accommodations as they can. Can we please get on with the vote?
Motion made and second. More discussion. All in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion is carried.
Thank you. I will facilitate working with the Volunteer Rescue Squad and Fire Department to resolve the issue.
David, you do what you feel that you have to do. You're the chief. I'm not, and none of this board members are the chief of the fire and rescue. You are. You deal with it the way you need to deal with it.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
But, Mr. Chairman, of course, you will give the board support if needed for Mr. Layman.
It has nothing to do with support, Mr.
Without-
Thomas. We're talking
I mean, without
about-
saying that.
Well, he has the authority to do what he needs to do to get the job done. Right. All right, next item on the agenda is reports from supervisor liaisons. Mr. Popowitz, Planning, Economic Development, and Utilities.
Yes, sir, I do have a few things here. As you well know, we are still working with the the All-American City Logo Program. I was unable to make it to the last meeting, but I will be making it to the next meeting, of course. We are working on some mail drops and cold callings in economic development least areas, and I think we've had some luck in getting some people to move forward with that. We've also are having our team meeting, which is a staff meeting, on the 14th of September, and some good things have come out of that this year. I think that we've had about 8 starts, is that right, Gary? 8 small business starts this year? 8 small business starts this year, is that right? So we're not wholly out of the picture here economically in Caroline, and so we're moving forward. John, did you tell me we had 22 new connections, equivalent of 22 new residential connections?
22 as of 4th, with 7 more on the horizon.
Okay, and 7 more on the horizon. Excellent. And then, of course, we are, you'll hear later tonight, we are updating our comprehensive plan. So we'll go through that a little later, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Popowitz. Mr. Thomas, Communications Technology, Recreation.
Yeah, I noticed that extra one. They all managed to go together, communications, technology, and recreation. The Communications and Technology Committee did not meet last month. We did, however, with Mr. Wilson's help, submit a bid for some stimulus funds. I think I made the board aware of that previously. There are a couple of other developments which I think the Technology Committee should take credit for, whether direct or indirect. But the board talked to MetroCast, and I think we'll talk to them again. They are expanding their broadband service into Bowling Green from Port Royal. And I'm sure the board's aware of the Comcast desire to increase their service. And I'm not sure if you got a letter, but I've got an email about their service changing in the Lake community to possibly add more broadband. So they were attending our meetings regularly. They knew that the county wanted to expand broadband in those areas, and I guess they're starting to do that themselves. So whether we had anything to do with that or not, it seems like more of a coincidence than not. Anyhow, that's kind of where we are. We do have another round of budget or of stimulus funds to try to submit for next month, I believe, and we'll probably be meeting at the end of this month. And the Recreation Committee meets on the 10th, so I will give you an update for them at our next meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. And that's good news to hear about Comcast.
It is. I'll find the email and make sure you get it.
Appreciate it. Mr. Seeley, Port Royal and Bowling Green.
Yes,
AP
sir. I'll start at AP Hill. I've met with the new base commander, Jack Hafner. Have talked with him, met his family, talked long-term plans with AP Hill where they foresee their whole mission going, what we may expect in the county in terms of new kinds of commands, new kinds of facilities, their new mission to work a little more closely with the county. I'm going to test that on a few things here pretty soon. They've also committed to working with the town of Bowling Green on a couple of economic development issues that are moving along quite nicely, so we'll see in the next few weeks how those fare out. There are some hurdles that they've leaped over. We've a couple left to go, and as soon as those are done, I'm hoping I can announce what's going on. The town of Port Royal is probably the most interested in their visitor center. I've talked with Mr. Ashcraft. I'm hoping we're nearing the point of being able to do something down there. They are anxiously awaiting that phase of completion. So, and that's about it for those 3 entities.
All right, thank you. Ms. Roselle, Public Safety and Public Works.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, tonight I have a public safety report. The department did receive a $12,000 grant from the Local Emergency Management Performance Grant. The town of Bowling Green formally adopted the county's emergency operation plan. Also, we had various training opportunities countywide. The recruitment and retention has gone good. Of course, the board did approve some new opportunities for the volunteers at our last meeting, a few meetings ago. And the The group did work at the county fair, providing public education documents and so forth. And we ran 167 fire calls, 359 EMS calls during July. And basically, the average department response time was 10 minutes and 33 seconds on fire, which is all volunteer primarily, and 10 minutes and 47 seconds on EMS response time, which is pretty good for a rural community. So I think we're doing well, as good as most counties around us. So I think we have a lot to be proud of our fire and EMS staff. That's all I have for the
All right.
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Rozelle. Finance, as I say, the Finance Committee group will get together this Friday to discuss the finances and income, outgo of the county and where we stand to this point. And we'll talk about any changes that possibly will be needed. And I'll report at another meeting as to what the outcome of that meeting will be. The RFP for the reassessments for the county has been advertised with a return date to the county of August 21st, and they're back, Fran, correct? And the interviews will begin September the 9th, I believe it is. Tomorrow, yes, tomorrow. We'll start tomorrow with the interviews for the reassessment operation. So, if anyone asks you, we are doing a reassessment this year in Caroline County. As far as education is concerned, Mr. Ashcraft and I met with the superintendent of schools and the chairman of the board last week, week before last now. And we have a meeting coming up next Thursday night, the 17th, with the school board to discuss issues that are mutually important to both boards. I did have an opportunity this last Thursday to attend the walkthrough, if you will, of the Caroline Diversified Center. And I think it's important, and I know that many of the or some of the board members have a concern about this new operation, and I did initially as well. But I think if you have an opportunity to look at the program and to hear what the program is all about and to understand what the program is trying to do, it very well may give you, I won't say that you'll come on board and embrace it necessarily, but I think it will give you a better understanding of what that operation is all about. I had an opportunity to spend about two and a half hours last Thursday over there, and I was impressed with what they have done thus far and what they are hoping to get accomplished through this school and through this program, and benefiting not only the students that go to this particular this facility, but also maybe the students that are going to be left in the high school and the middle school that will not have to deal with some of the issues that they dealt with in the past. So again, I'm sure that's going to be something they'll talk about, the school board will talk about in our meeting next Thursday night. And so that's what I have on finance and education. Next item on the agenda is appointments. Rappahannock Area Agency on Aging Board of Directors.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I do have a person that I would like to nominate for that position. I'd like to nominate, make a motion to nominate Bill Wick of Fort Royal District for that position.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Popowitz, seconded by Mr. Seeley, that we appoint Mr. Bill Wick to serve on the Rappahannock Area Agency on Aging Board of Directors to fill the unexpired term of Ms. Washington. Discussion of the motion. All in favor, vote by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, nay, and the motion is carried. The 2010 Census Committee, Mr. Popowitz, do you have anyone to serve for your district?
Yes, sir, I do. I'd like to make a motion that we nominate Mr. John Lampman from the Port Royal, Porto-Rico Bay area. Lampman, L-A-M-P-M-A-N.
Okay. Mr. Thomas, do you have anyone who will make all the appointments at one time?
No, I don't have one at this
Okay.
time.
Mr. Seeley?
No, sir, I'm still waiting for
Mr. Rozelle?
answers.
I just got some information from Mr. Ashcraft today. The person I was talking to wanted to know how often would they meet and how long would they meet, and would it be day or night? So share that information, but I do not have one tonight.
Okay. The person I want to appoint hasn't got back to me yet, so I don't have the okay to put her name on the list. I wish I did. Is there a motion to appoint Mr. John Lampman to the 2010 Census Committee?
So moved.
Is there a second? Motion by Mr. Popovich, second by Mr. Thomas. Discussion on the motion. All in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. The motion is carried. Consent agenda. Is there an item on the consent agenda that any board member wishes to pull?
Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
C and E.
C and E. All right, is there a motion to approve A, B, D, and F?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Mr. Popowitz, seconded by Mr. Seeley. Discussion on the motion. All in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay, and the motion is carried. Mr. Seeley, C.
Mr. Chairman, I have, in this board packet, there is a real, and I understand Mr. Fincham was out, but I have a real lack of understanding of what's going on here, and I'd like to talk about what this means and what this is really doing. Mr. Fincham.
Yes, sir.
I guess I don't understand why we're doing a lot line adjustment or a boundary change on these lots in Ladysmith Village, since I thought they were pretty much laid out and going to build the way they'd arranged everything at this point. So what I want to make sure is we're not encroaching on anything that was already agreed to that we may not be aware we're changing.
Mr. Seeley, I've looked at the proposed boundary line adjustment. In effect, what the board is being asked to agree to is the vacation and relocation of the utility easements for the water and sewer lines, which are driven by the proposed boundary line adjustments of those 4 existing lots. What we have in this case are the lots are actually being enlarged from what they were originally platted. They were originally platted as lots of about 1,400 square feet, and you have lots that are in the 2,600 to 2,800 square foot range. The proposed lots are in accordance with the approved zoning back when Ladysmith Village was zoned in 2003, approximately. There's a fairly detailed set of architectural standards, which includes lot types, the dimensions of those lots, what can be built on those lots, and where those lots can be built within the community. The proposed lot layout is consistent with the permitted lots and the dimensions of those lots that are set forth in the architectural standards, which were proffered. So the proposed boundary line adjustment is consistent with the underlying zoning of the planned mixed-use development designation and the lots that were approved with that zoning.
Is this going to cause, I mean, we're going to make this change. What does this do to the next set of buildings built across from it, next to it, behind it? I mean, does this start a domino effect that ripples all the way down through all the lots that precede this?
I don't believe that is the case. And again, looking at it technically in terms of the zoning that was approved by the board, this request is consistent with that zoning that was approved by the board. We look at it from the technical perspective. Does it meet those zoning regulations? And I think the answer is yes. Do I think this has an impact on the next section? I believe the answer to that question is no. The sections to the west of this area have not yet been platted. So when that subdivision plat comes in, the lots would we would get a subdivision plat similar to what we did with the first couple of sections. And if there's an adjustment in the lots, that would be reflected with that subdivision plat. I think the zoning itself recognizes, and there was some flexibility built into the zoning to allow adjustments like this to occur. So in the big picture, I don't believe what is being requested is inconsistent with the zoning as it was approved.
So we shouldn't be affecting any quote-unquote proffers doing this?
No, I don't believe you are affecting any proffers related to the zoning at all. I believe this is consistent with the proffers that were accepted.
So the lots aren't getting smaller, they are getting bigger?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Okay.
All right. E?
Mr. Chairman, I guess I have a couple of questions on this. Number one, I've talked with John before the meeting because it looked like we were going to sign a contract when we were done with this for $195,250 because that was the total that was actually written, and the whole contract that would be signed all the way down would have been for the total amount. And I was in no way ready to actually go ahead and authorize all of those things to be done. But I'm still not sure that we even, again, tonight we've gone through another $23,000, $25,000 for the Frog Level Volunteer Rescue Squad. And we're getting ready to spend $4,000 on something I'm not sure we have the money to even go forward with, even after the study was done. I'm not sure the study's going to do us any good at this point because I don't believe we have the wherewithal to move forward even after that's done. So I'm not so sure we shouldn't wait till later in the year, at the end of the year, to see if we can even afford to go forward because we are, again, only in the first quarter. We're pushing $100,000 that we haven't allocated in the budget, and this is just another $4,000, and it's the fourth agenda item tonight. So I have real reservations on spending the money at this point in time. Not saying it's not something in the future we wouldn't look at, but right now I just don't see that we have the dollars to go forward and do it.
Okay. Other comments, questions? Is there a motion to approve C and D or not approve C and D?
I'll make a motion to approve C.
All right, we'll take them one at a time. Is there a second to the motion to approve C?
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Seeley, seconded by Mr. Rozell, that item C on the consent agenda be approved as presented. Discussion? All in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Is there a motion to approve E?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Rozell, seconded by Mr. Popowitz, that we approve E. Is discussion on the motion? All in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay.
Nay.
Motion is carried.
Mr. Chairman, just, we did budget, originally, in the forecast, and this was $40,000. We spent the $13,000 and the $4,000, but we can't determine whether or not this project is totally feasible, and we want to see that it will pay its way. And the only way we can move forward at any point is to make sure that, I think we got to convince the majority of this board it's got to pretty much pay its way. And that's what we want to identify, and, that's where it starts and stops, and, we need to do that. So appreciate the board's support.
Okay, board will take a 10-minute recess. We'll reconvene at 7:30. Yeah.